Today, we're exploring one of the most dramatic and heart-wrenching stories from the scriptures, the rise and fall of Absalom, the most handsome man in the Bible. Imagine someone so stunning that his very presence turned heads wherever he went. Yet his beauty masked an ambition that would lead to betrayal, rebellion, and ultimately tragedy. Absalom's story is not just about outward appearance. It's a powerful reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition and misplaced priorities. His life teaches us that no matter how beautiful or charismatic someone may be, true greatness comes from within. A lesson that resonates deeply even in today's world, where image and power can often overshadow character and virtue. As we unravel the life of Absalom, you'll see a tale filled with love, betrayal, ambition, and the ultimate cost of rebellion. This story is more than just a glimpse into the past. It holds timeless truths that we can all learn from. But before we dive in, I want to take a moment to remind you to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. If you find this message powerful and believe others can learn from it, share it with your church group, your family, and your friends. Let's spread these important lessons far and wide so that we can all grow in wisdom and faith together. Well, let me introduce you to Absalom, a man whose breathtaking beauty matched the tragic nature of his life. Picture a man so flawless that from head to toe, there wasn't a single imperfection. His hair was so remarkable that when he cut it once a year, it weighed an incredible 2.2 kilos. That's definitely not something you hear about every day, right? But Absalom's striking looks were just the surface of a much deeper and more dramatic story, one filled with intrigue and heartbreak. He was the son of King David, the same David who famously defeated Goliath. Yet unlike his father, Absalom didn't earn a reputation for bravery or faith, but for his rebellious spirit and unquenchable ambition. Before we dive further, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you won't miss any future videos. As the sun rose over Jerusalem, the city began to buzz with life, from the palaces to the streets. Israel was experiencing an era of incredible prosperity, with David, the king chosen by God, at its center. 3 decades had passed since the young shepherd took down Goliath with a sling and a stone. Now David was the unchallenged ruler of a unified, powerful kingdom. Under his leadership, the 12 tribes of Israel were finally united. Enemies were vanquished, and Jerusalem had grown into not only a political capital, but also the spiritual heart of the nation. The tabernacle of God was situated in the city of David, and psalms of praise echoed through the valleys. Israel's borders expanded, its people thrived, and nearby nations trembled in the face of Israel's might. It was a golden age of dreams realized and promises kept. But beneath the royal splendor, dark clouds loomed. The kingdom's shining exterior masked the cracks forming within David's own family. His affair with Bathsheba and the murder of Uriah still cast an unspoken shadow. The words of the prophet Nathan haunted the palace. The sword will never leave your house. Amidst this scene of glory and hidden sorrow, Absalom, David's third son, was growing up. Born in Hebron and raised in Jerusalem, the young prince was surrounded by power from birth. He saw the grandeur of the kingdom, but also the whispered palace intrigues and ambitions that simmered beneath the surface. Absalom grew into a keen observer, learning about the fragility of power, the influence of appearance, and the draw of charisma. He watched his father, the great King David, adored by the people, chosen by God, but also a man tormented by the mistakes of his past. Absalom also saw his older brothers, the apparent heirs to the throne, both tantalizingly close and far away. Seeds of ambition and rebellion took root in Absalom's heart. While Israel enjoyed its golden era, a storm was quietly forming, threatening to shake the kingdom to its core. This was the stage for a tale of love, betrayal, beauty, and tragedy that would be remembered for generations. A story that teaches us that even in times of glory, the human heart remains a battleground between virtue and unchecked desire. David, the king anointed by God, was a man full of contrasts, a valiant warrior and a sensitive poet, a powerful leader and a repentant sinner. His many wives and concubines had given him numerous sons, each carrying the weight of royal blood. Among them, Absalom was a standout. Born to Maacah, a princess of Geshur, he had inherited his mother's exotic beauty and his father's magnetic charm. From a young age, Absalom turned heads wherever he went. His dark, lustrous hair was the talk of all Israel, and his regal presence made many see him as the perfect image of what a prince should be. But Absalom wasn't the firstborn. Ahead of him were Amnon, David's eldest son by Ahinoam, and Chileab, son of Abigail. The existence of these older brothers loomed over Absalom's aspirations. Tensions within the royal family were high, as the various mothers competed for influence, each trying to secure the future of their own sons. Absalom watched everything with sharp eyes, learning the delicate dance of politics and manipulation from an early age. His sister Tamar, renowned for her beauty, rivaled even Absalom's looks. The prince's love for his sister was deep and protective, one of the few genuine relationships in a world filled with self-interest. As Absalom matured, his popularity among the people grew. His natural charm and stunning appearance made him a favorite throughout Israel. He had a way of making everyone feel special, of captivating the crowds. David, watching from a distance, felt both pride and concern. He saw in Absalom much of himself, the ability to lead, the charisma, the ambition. But he also sensed something darker, a thirst for power that troubled him. Nathan's prophecy continued to echo in David's ears. The sword will not depart from your house. Was Absalom the embodiment of this curse, or was he the future leader Israel needed? Meanwhile, rumors spread through the palace and the streets of Jerusalem. Absalom, the beautiful prince, the beloved son of the people. Absalom, the ambitious manipulator. Absalom, whose stunning exterior hid a heart growing ever darker. A tragedy of biblical proportions was brewing, a tale of brotherly love, betrayal, revenge, and beauty that would prove both a gift and a curse. Absalom's beauty was a double-edged sword. On one side, it won the people's admiration. Young and old, rich and poor alike were drawn to him. When he spoke, people listened. When he asked, they responded. Absalom's striking appearance seemed like a symbol of divine favor, a visible sign of God's grace upon David's household. Yet this same beauty fueled his vanity, intensifying his already immense ambitions. Absalom began to see himself as more than just another prince. He was convinced he alone was truly fit to inherit David's throne. After all, wasn't he the perfect image of royalty? Shouldn't someone as majestic as he was be the one to rule? Within the palace walls, Absalom's beauty stirred jealousy and envy. His brothers, particularly Amnon, the eldest, saw him as a growing threat. Meanwhile, David's senior advisors distrusted Absalom, perceiving him as a prince more preoccupied with his looks than with the responsibilities of ruling. As time passed, Absalom's beauty became renowned throughout Israel and beyond. Foreign diplomats returned home with stories of a prince whose allure rivaled that of the gods. Young women fantasized about marrying him, and young men admired and aspired to be like him. But beneath the charm and good looks, a growing darkness began to take root in Absalom's heart. What should have been a blessing, his beauty became a prison. He longed to be valued for more than his appearance, yet feared losing the influence that his looks provided. One day, Absalom silently vowed to prove his worth. He promised himself that he would show everyone he was more than just a handsome face. He would become king, no matter the cost. Little did he know, this promise would set him on a path toward both glory and destruction, teaching him that true beauty comes from within, and even the most attractive man can fall into the deepest of darkness. The beginning of this downward spiral started with Amnon, David's eldest son, and heir apparent to the throne. Amnon was consumed by forbidden desires, and his eyes had fallen on Tamar, Absalom's sister. His overwhelming lust turned him into a shadow of the man he was supposed to be. One fateful day, blinded by his desires, Amnon committed a horrific act. He lured Tamar into his chambers under false pretenses and violently assaulted her, robbing her of her innocence. Tamar's desperate cries for help echoed through the palace, but no one came to her aid. When Absalom heard what had happened, something within him shifted. The love he had for his sister transformed into a cold, unrelenting fury. His once lively and charming eyes darkened with resolve. He comforted Tamar, promising vengeance, though his words were chilling and deliberate. For 2 long years, Absalom waited patiently, observing Amnon, studying his habits and biding his time. King David, torn between his love for his children and the horror of what had occurred, remained indecisive, unable to properly punish Amnon. Finally, during a festive gathering for sheep shearers, Absalom set his plan in motion. He invited all of the king's sons, including Amnon. As the wine flowed and laughter filled the air, everything suddenly changed. At Absalom's command, his servants attacked. The sound of drawn swords shattered the celebration, and in moments Amnon was dead, his blood staining the floor. Panic ensued as the other princes fled, fearing for their lives. Absalom mounted his mule and fled to Geshur, the land of his mother's family. The news hit David like a punch to the chest. His eldest son was dead, killed by his own brother. Nathan's prophecy had begun to fulfill itself in the most painful way. The sword would indeed never depart from David's house. For Absalom, the murder of Amnon was more than just an act of vengeance. It was the first strategic move in his quest for the throne of Israel. By eliminating his biggest rival, he crossed a point of no return. As Absalom left Jerusalem, his long black hair blowing in the wind, he realized his life would never be the same again. His once admired beauty would now only inspire fear and distrust. He had traded the love of the people for the satisfaction of revenge. But Absalom did not regret his actions. In his mind, this was merely the beginning. He would return to Israel, not as the beloved prince, but as a man ready to claim what he believed was rightfully his, the throne of his father. During the years that followed, even in exile, Absalom's ambition did not fade. Instead, he continued to scheme, carefully planning for his eventual return, which he believed would shake Israel to its core. 3 years passed since the day he fled after killing Amnon. 3 years spent in Geshur, where his resentment grew and his determination solidified. When he finally returned, it was not with a grand entrance, but quietly. David's response remained. Caught between his love for Absalom and the grief over Amnon's death, David allowed Absalom to return to Jerusalem but kept his distance, refusing to see him. For 2 years, Absalom lived in the city without access to the king. However, during this time, he was far from inactive. Absalom carefully laid the groundwork for his next move, waiting at the city gates every morning. There he intercepted those seeking justice from the king, greeting them with kind words and attentive gestures. He would listen to their grievances, offer advice, and promise assistance. "If only I were in charge," he would say, his voice full of false humility. "Everyone would get the justice they deserve." Slowly but surely, Absalom won over the people. His striking looks drew them in, his charm captivated them, and his promises enticed them. All the while, behind the scenes, he built alliances with dissatisfied nobles, power-hungry priests, and ambitious soldiers. 4 years passed this way, years of calculated smiles, deceitful embraces, and hollow promises. Finally, sensing the time was right, Absalom approached David, requesting permission to travel to Hebron, claiming he needed to fulfill a vow made to God. Blinded by his love for his son and a desire to mend their relationship, David granted him permission. Once in Hebron, the former capital of Israel, Absalom made his move. He sent messengers across the land with a clear instruction: "When you hear the sound of the trumpet, declare Absalom king in Hebron." Years of careful plotting now came to fruition. The rebellion spread rapidly, like flames across a dry field. Men from all corners of Israel flocked to join Absalom, drawn in by his charm, his beauty, and his promises of a better and more just kingdom. In Jerusalem, the news hit David with the force of a storm. His beloved son, the handsome Absalom, had betrayed him. Nathan's prophecy was unfolding in a way even more terrible than David could have imagined. As David prepared to flee the city, Absalom advanced at the front of his rebel army, his long black hair flowing in the wind. His once admired beauty now served as a mask, concealing the unchecked ambition that consumed him. Civil war loomed on the horizon, pitting father against son, beauty against wisdom, and ambition against loyalty. The stage was set for a battle that would not only determine the fate of the kingdom, but also expose the true nature of Absalom, the man once hailed as Israel's most handsome prince. David, the seasoned warrior and king chosen by God, was torn apart. His heart yearned for reconciliation, but his duty as ruler required him to face the threat to Israel's unity. With tears in his eyes, David gave his commanders a final order: "Be gentle with Absalom." Absalom, riding confidently on his mule with his flowing hair, was brimming with pride. His beauty, once his greatest asset, now filled him with a dangerous arrogance. He saw himself not as a mere rebel, but as Israel's savior, destined to bring a new era of glory to the kingdom. The sound of trumpets echoed, signaling the start of the battle. The clash of swords, the cries of soldiers, and the thunder of horses reverberated through the forest. The ground shook under the weight of the war, with the trees standing as silent witnesses to the fraternal conflict. As the battle raged, Absalom charged through the chaos, his presence inspiring his followers. Even amid the dirt and blood of combat, his beauty seemed almost supernatural. Some of his enemies hesitated to strike him, as if attacking such beauty was a sin. But David's experience and strategy began to take its toll. His battle-hardened veterans, seasoned by years of warfare, gradually outmatched Absalom's youthful and reckless forces. Slowly, the rebellion was pushed deeper into the forest. In a moment of desperation, Absalom attempted to flee, but fate, or perhaps divine intervention, had other plans. As he passed beneath a massive oak tree, his famously long hair became entangled in its low-hanging branches. His mule continued running, leaving Absalom suspended in the air, trapped by the very hair that had once been his pride and glory. There, helpless and defenseless, The once beautiful prince was discovered by Joab, David's merciless general. Ignoring the king's command to spare Absalom, Joab saw his chance. Determined to put an end to the rebellion, Joab struck Absalom with 3 spears, piercing his heart. Word of Absalom's death spread quickly, and with their leader gone, the revolt collapsed. David emerged victorious, but it was a victory drenched in sorrow. When the news of Absalom's death reached him, David's grief echoed throughout the camp. "My son Absalom, my son, if only I had died instead of you, O Absalom, my son." Absalom's body was thrown into a deep pit in the forest, and a large mound of stones was piled over him. A silent marker for the tragedy of a man whose physical beauty masked a heart consumed by ambition. And so, the life of Absalom, Israel's most handsome man, came to a tragic end. His beauty, which could have been a blessing, turned into his curse. His ambition, which might have led to greatness, became his undoing. David, once the great warrior king, returned to his capital a broken man. His face, once full of life, was now etched with sorrow and regret. He moved slowly, as if every step brought him closer to the heartbreaking reality he couldn't accept. His beloved son, Absalom, was gone. In the days that followed, the king's grief became the nation's sorrow. The once vibrant palace, filled with music and laughter, now echoed only with quiet sobs and tense whispers. Servants moved about like shadows, afraid to disturb David's mourning. Meanwhile, in the streets of Jerusalem, the people of Israel grappled with the aftermath. Many who had been drawn to Absalom's charm and good looks now felt a deep sense of shame. They realized they had been captivated by the surface, ignoring the darkness within. Every household, every street corner, buzzed with reflection on the heavy cost of rebellion. Families were torn apart, friendships shattered, and lives lost, all because of the unchecked ambition of a man who placed his desires above the well-being of his nation. 3 days after the news broke, David finally emerged from his chambers. His face was pale, his eyes red from endless tears, but there was now a steely resolve in his gaze. He gathered his advisors and began the difficult work of restoring a kingdom ravaged by civil war. His first decree was to declare a 30-day national period of mourning. All of Israel would grieve not just for Absalom, but for the loss of innocence in a nation that had turned against its anointed king. During this time, David poured his emotions into writing some of his most heartfelt psalms. They were filled with words of pain, repentance, and eventually hope. In one of them he wrote, "The Lord is close to the broken-hearted and saves those crushed in spirit." As the days passed, a painful lesson began to crystallize in the minds of the Israelites. They had learned the hard way that true beauty comes from within, not from outward appearances. They realized that real strength is found not in physical might or charisma, but in wisdom and reverence for God. Across Israel, fathers began teaching their sons about the dangers of pride and unchecked ambition. Absalom's life became a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most handsome and promising individuals can fall if they stray from God's path. Meanwhile, deep in the forest of Ephraim, the stone heap over Absalom's grave stood as a somber reminder. Travelers passing by would often stop to reflect on the fate of the prince, whose allure had once captivated a nation, only to lead it toward the brink of destruction. They say time heals all wounds, but for David and the people of Israel, the scars left by Absalom's rebellion remained raw and painful. As years went by, the story of the handsome prince who nearly tore a kingdom apart became a legend, passed down through generations. David, now aged and weathered by years of trials, devoted himself to ensuring that the lessons from Absalom's tragic downfall would never be forgotten. He called his son Solomon, the chosen heir, to his side and shared his hard-earned wisdom. "My son," David said, his voice heavy with emotion, "remember always that a king's true beauty is not in his appearance, but in his heart." Absalom was beautiful on the outside, but his soul was filled with pride and ambition. Do not repeat his mistakes. Eager to learn, Solomon absorbed every word from his father, realizing that his duty would not only be to rule Israel, but to heal the wounds left by his brother's rebellion. Think for a moment, how often, even today, do we see people elevated to positions of power and influence based on their looks or charm? Celebrities, influencers, even political leaders are often chosen more for their image than for their integrity or wisdom. But the story of Absalom teaches us that this kind of beauty is fleeting and can be dangerous when it isn't accompanied by inner virtue. Just as Absalom's flowing hair, his symbol of pride, became the cause of his downfall, our society's obsession with image can easily become our trap. Let us, as the psalmist wrote, seek the beauty of the Lord, not the superficial beauty of this world, for it is the beauty of character, wisdom, and love that truly transcends time. Absalom's life was a tragic reminder that physical beauty and ambition can never replace inner strength, wisdom, and faithfulness to God. Despite his charisma, power, and appeal, Absalom's relentless desire for the throne and his betrayal of his father led him down a path of destruction. In the end, he not only lost the kingdom, but also the love and respect of the people, and most importantly, his life. As we reflect on this incredible story, let it serve as a reminder to us all that true beauty lies within and real strength comes from following God's ways. Absalom's story is a warning against pride and ambition unchecked by faith. His downfall teaches us that success without integrity leads to ruin.